Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I would like to thank everyone for coming to this special meeting of the Human Relations Commission of the City of Palo Alto. As we all know, we are living in some very interesting and difficult times. And as a city, Palo Alto is committing to working hard to address some of the challenges we face. Particularly, the Human Relations Commission has been charged by the City Council to come back in 60 days with two specific items: a review of 8 can't wait policies as described by Campaign Zero, and a statement or a review report on the current and historic situation of Black and Brown individuals in the city. We have called a special meeting because of the shortness of time, and also because of the intensity of work and the fact that generally July is a slow period in the city. We wanted to organize our work plan. We wanted to start hearing from the public. We wanted to give commissioners chance to input. We also have members from city staff and city council that are here with us that will have some valuable input into this dialogue and this discussion. Our goal tonight is to leave the meeting with a very clear idea of a work plan to meet the City Council's directive to our commission. I would ask that staff do the roll call, please.
Commissioner Lee,
Present.
Commissioner Regier, Commissioner Savage,
Present.
Chair Smith,
Present.
Vice Chair Stinger,
You're muted.
Councilmember Tanaka.
Here.
Councilmember Koo.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we currently, I want to open up for oral communications. If you have any communication that you'd like to make to the HRC that is not, I repeat, not part of the issue around 8 can't wait or the report we're bringing back to the City Council, please raise your hand. Before I acknowledge that, if it is something to deal with that area, your comments will be more effective if it's dealt with at the time we're talking about those. Staff? Oh, sorry. One last thing, do we have any agenda changes, deletions, requests before we move to oral communications? Okay. So we will go to oral communications. We have one hand. Just for consistency's sake, we will ask that each public oral communication be 2 minutes. And staff, please set the clock. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first speaker is Jamie Hendry. Jamie, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you to the commission. I'll be super brief. I just want to express my condolences to the commission that City Council has decided to cut your commission from 7 members down to 5 members. I think that's very sad, and just I'm sad for you guys. Thank you.
Chair, there are no more hands for oral communications.
Thank you so much for that public comment. Let's just get to the business at hand. Now, we received some very specific instructions from the council. The language reads in the motion from the council. It was direct the HRC to lead the 8 Can't Wait campaign and to produce a report on Black and Brown history and current community in Palo Alto within 60 days. So we are here to specifically speak on that today. What I want to do is I want to give the public their 2 minutes each to provide comment. I know that each commissioner has had some time to think and wants to give some input. So I'm going to do a round robin, starting from alphabetical order like we did the last time, started with Commissioner Lee. And then we will start putting the work plan up and work from there. We'll also ask right after public comment that I'll ask if any of our council members or staff have any input that they provided at that time. And then after that, we will go into the full development of the work plan. Does that work? All right. If you would like to make a comment on the directive given to the HRC around 8 Can't Wait and developing a report on Black and Brown history and current community in Palo Alto, please raise your hand at this time.
I'm just going to wait a minute, Chair, as to see which individuals will be raising their hand. So I have 2 hands raised at this point. And hold on. The first hand raised is Jamie Hendry, to be followed by Rohan Ghosh. So Jamie, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So implementing 8 Can't Wait seems pretty straightforward, but I'm a little bit confused and concerned about how putting together the history of Black and Brown communities in Palo Alto is going to take place. I really would like to see us reach out to activists in East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Redwood City, Mountain View as well, because I think to kind of get a really comprehensive idea on the history that's taken place in our community and in this area, it's going to take more than, I believe there's just 248 registered African-American voters in Palo Alto. And getting all of them to engage and then that being sufficient, I think is not quite enough. I think we really need to do our due diligence and reach out to the surrounding communities, particularly East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Redwood City, and get their input on this history because they're just as much a part of the Silicon Valley and our history of racism here in the Bay Area as we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. The next speaker is Rohan Ghosh, to be followed by Kevin Ma. Rohan, go ahead. You have 2 minutes, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Human Relations Commission. To be frank, I know your mandate is to address specifically the 8 Can't Wait reforms, but I think to be clear, we have to make it very clear that 8 Can't Wait is under no means enough. And that has to be made very clear in the report that the HRC presents to City Council. The Palo Alto Police Department is, it's honestly a little bit of a disgrace. I mean, a lot of a disgrace. We are under federal investigation. We have such a bad track record on civil rights in Palo Alto that the federal government under the Trump administration is investigating our police department. We have police officers like Thomas DeStefano still on city payroll after in a very racist and wanton manner abusing our residents like Julio Alvaro, and having that information be completely open. And the city of Palo Alto's police department has more racial bias in arrests than 83% of other police departments. That means in terms of racial bias in arrests, our city is worse than 83% of other cities. So these 8 Can't Wait reforms, they're paltry reforms. They do not achieve what we actually need to achieve, which is a full rethink and revamp of what policing means and what public safety means. So that is why I am asking you as a resident of this city to make sure in your report to ask City Council to expand your mandate, to say clearly that 8 Can't Wait is not enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan. The next speaker is Kevin Ma, to be followed by Liz I. Kevin, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Hello, commissioners. I agree with the previous speakers that the 8 can't wait. The name suggests like these are just 8 things that we just do immediately, but they should be a stepping stone for further action. If you actually paid attention to the 8 can't wait website recently, they've changed it so they say that it's basically a path towards full police and prison abolishment, because we do need to spend the resources to save people before they enter our current prison pipeline. Because right now, everyone kind of agrees that if you go to prison, you're kind of in a bad situation for the rest of your life for the most part. As a result, while it is a good idea to just explore, let's just remind ourselves that these policies like duty to intervene, de-escalation, like to the reasonable person, these should have been in the policies long ago, not something we just like patch on now. And as previous people have specified, we currently have a police department that's currently under FBI investigation, and there's now a lawsuit filed in federal court regarding the Arvello investigation. So I would like the commissioners to keep these things in mind, that there's still a lot of work to be done, especially given the current demographics of our city compared to our neighbors like Menlo Park or East Palo Alto. Those are systemic issues that, while police brutality is one part of it, like does need to be addressed fully. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. The next speaker is Liz, to be followed by Teresa. Liz, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'd like to also show my support in defunding the police and showing that we are not about reform, so we are about abolition for our community, because we cannot reform police out of the job of enforcing, criminalizing people for survival. Police officers will incarcerate you for being homeless. That is seen as disorderly to the public. They will then arrest you for the fact that the city won't supply you with enough low-income housing. Palo Alto is trying to cleanse itself of low-income people and people of color by using law enforcement, and also in tangent with like not providing low-income resources or free accessible community services, including recreational and healthcare, such and such. So I think the 8 Can't Wait campaign, while it may seem like it's maybe well-intentioned, to claim that it will only reduce police killings by 72% is not enough. We're asking for 100% abolition. And with police, it's already been reformed since its inception. Since the 13th Amendment hadn't fully abolished slavery, but allowed for penal labor or forced servitude to be a legitimate form of punishment in the carceral system, police have changed and reformed with the times, but only to better continue with its legacy of enforcing slavery. For the past 5 decades since Jim Crow ended, the federal government has made it illegal to use racist regulations, a type of reform. However, Black and brown people still disproportionately represent those incarcerated, living in poverty, living in food deserts, and living in poorly funded neighborhoods, and not because they're the inferior race or because they are the white man's burden. It is because the racist, imperialist, capitalist systems that are made not to include low-income people, not meant to include those with disabilities, not meant to include people of color and, women and trans people and gender non-conforming people. So you really need to opt into the idea that's abolitionist, because an abolitionist will abolish criminalizing survival.
Thank you, Liz. The next speaker is Teresa, to be followed by Pramila. So go ahead, Teresa, you have 2 minutes. Teresa, go ahead, please. You might need to unmute on your end. Teresa? Maybe we'll go on to our next speaker. The next speaker is Pramila. Pramila, go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Pramila?
Yeah.
Minka, it looks like she's muted.
I know, and I've unmuted her several times on my end, so I'm not sure what is happening. It's the same format I used for the other callers. So.
Oh, can you hear me now?
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful. So you have 2 minutes, Pramila.
Okay, and actually I'll be really brief. What I was saying earlier is that I agree very much with what Rohan had said earlier about the fact that the scope of just looking at a can't wait in that criteria. I can just say that there are a couple of other things that we should be looking at in terms of when do independent investigations kick in? What are the guidelines around that? I think that's really important. And also audits. I think when we talk about requiring comprehensive reporting, we should have a process around auditing those. I know at a federal level, they were talking about going back 10 years. I'm not saying that that should be the case, but maybe it should be. There should be a standard that we should be looking to compare as to what seems reasonable. And that way, it's not just a matter of reporting. How do we know that we're reporting accurately and comprehensively? So I would say that we should be also considering what an audit of the police department would look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramila. And our final speaker is Owen. Owen, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please. It says on my screen, Owen, that you're using an older version of Zoom. So that I would need to promote him to panelist to go ahead. So I will do that just for the purpose of this 2-minute conversation. Owen?
Hi there, can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, please.
So I just wanted to briefly talk about, and I think a lot of other speakers have definitely echoed this, the fact that we fundamentally need to start rethinking the way that we police Palo Alto. There's 2 main points I wanted to touch on. I guess the first point is, and I've been to a lot of protests regarding Black Lives Matter and protests against police brutality in this town. And the one thing that I've seen every time is police officers riding motorcycles with AR-15s and with automatic assault weapons. And I just want to make it very clear, we do not live in Iraq. It's not a war zone here. This is the big thing, and this is the main point that I wanted to focus on, is just why we have this militarized police force. Is there any real reason that the police need automatic assault weapons? Like, this is ridiculous. We fundamentally need to rethink the way that we police in this town. There's 8 can't wait, and I also really think that we need to go further, and we need to start thinking about, in the minimum, defunding the police, and at the maximum, we need to start from the ground up thinking about how we're going to do policing in this town. Because when I see those men with guns riding their motorbikes around town, I don't really think of them as community members that are there to protect me and to uphold the law. They look like soldiers from an occupying army. And this it's just not the way that we need to do policing. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Hold on a minute while I get the last 2 speakers. Okay, the last 2 speakers that I have are Norma and Teresa. Teresa, thank you for calling back in. I hope we can get you to be able to work this time. So the first speaker is Norma. Norma, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Hi. I would like just to start off to say that Palo Alto has a history of segregation and redlining, and this is literally why East Palo Alto exists with so many Black and brown people. And so many of these Black and brown people, they come into work in Palo Alto in minimum wage jobs, and then we are policed. I mean, I work in Palo Alto and I identify as Latinx, and I've been pulled over simply for riding my bike late at night. That is not okay. Which brings me to my next point. Like, 8 can't wait is not enough. It's reformist, does not get to the root of the problem. The fact is that police uphold white supremacy. We can see this in the ways that police forces emerge directly from slave patrols and how they disproportionately criminalize Black and brown people like myself. I mean, I don't think I have to make the case anymore that the police are a racist institution. This is why we're here. And more importantly, police don't stop crime. They simply arrive after the crime has been committed if they aren't part of the crime already. So why are we spending so much money on them? So I would really like to call on you to bring these questions to City Council and demand that they make an amendment in their budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. And our final speaker is Teresa. Teresa, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me?
We can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I think it is important for you to hear firsthand accounts of people's negative experiences with police officers in our community. My negative experiences started young as I watched my Black father pulled over by Palo Alto cops without reason and questioned about where he was going, making comments about him living in East Palo Alto. I watched as he had to explain that he was a Palo Alto resident, a homeowner, and had lived here his entire life. These incidents continued to happen over and over again to myself and my family. It became the status quo. We were lucky if we even got a reason as to why we were being pulled over by police. We were degraded and demeaned and questioned about why we were in the city that we lived in and owned homes in and paid taxes in. This continued to happen throughout my lifetime, through my teenage years as an adult. As a teenager, I was asked to stay behind while other kids were let go from parties when parties got broken up. And all of the white kids were allowed to leave, but all of the Black and brown kids had to stay behind. And we would be asked to spread our arms out across the pavement or the curbs and questioned about what we were doing there and detained for no reason whatsoever. Our white friends would try to advocate for us and help out, but when it comes down to it, they didn't want to get in trouble and have to leave us there behind and say, hey, sorry guys, sorry you're being detained by the police because of the color of your skin. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. I would like another opportunity to be able to share my experiences because 2 minutes just isn't long enough. Thank you.
Teresa?
Yes.
This is Chair Smith. I'm going to give you my email address. We are arranging to have a community forum where people can share experiences like this. So my email address is pastor@universityamez.com, and we're going to actually decide when that meeting is during this meeting, but I would love to hear your and your father's experience. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that because trying to rush it all in 2 minutes super fast isn't going to work for me. And I really do have a statement that I would like to read, and it would probably take about 4 or 5 minutes to read. And I think that it's important for people to hear.
Just email me. We'll make sure
Can
you have a
your
space.
email? Can you please repeat your email?
pastor@university AMEZ Alpha Mike Echo Zulu.com. pastor@university AMEZ.com. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you.
We have reached the end of our public comment time. I would like to thank each individual that spoke. I believe you've added a lot to the context of this meeting. We have some staff members here that have been working on some community stuff. Megan, I'm going to put you on the spot, or you don't want to say anything? I don't know if you want to say. That I think fits in. Don't want to do it? Okay. That fits in dovetail with what Teresa was talking about, spaces and opportunities and information for the public in this process. So I'd ask that, and then I'd ask for both council members to go after that if nobody else from staff wants to speak. Do you want to say anything? You're muted. You're muted, City Manager.
Always get past that hiccup.
Yeah.
Just want to say thank you, Chair. I'd actually perhaps defer to the council members first. On behalf of staff, I would just note that as the HRC received an assignment specifically to work on the 8 Can't Wait. Staff also received an assignment to work with City Council on a total of 6 initiatives related to racial equity. So we'll be attacking this on a number of dimensions, and really want to just stand by and as we're getting organized in how best we can provide the support to the HRC and to the council, we're beginning that organizing, and we'll look forward to tonight's discussion to help us take those next steps. We do have a number of pieces of information that have been coming out and will be continuing to be coming out that represent informational foundation related to policing, as well as other issues that the commission and the council will be talking about. So perhaps we can get into that in a little more detail a little later on.
Councilwoman Koo, can you hear me? Sorry, there we go. I was going to say, do you want to say anything at this time?
Thank you for that. And thanks to all the general public who has come out and spoken also. It's good to hear what we really need to work on. And I just wanted to finish also what city manager had said about, the city council is involved in moving forward. And, we have distributed responsibilities throughout, to HRC, but also amongst ourselves in order to tackle this head on ourselves. And I just want to provide our ad hoc committees and which council members are on which ones. There is the business support that Councilmember Nis and Cormac is on. And then there is also police data, hiring, and policies, which I am on. Vice Mayor Du Bois and Councilmember Cormac. There's also alternative service models, which is looking into other cities and how they deliver their public safety. Councilmember Greg Tanaka and Councilmember Nis is on that. Then there is also the transparency and accountability ad hoc committee, which Vice Mayor Du Bois and Councilmember Filsef is on. We also have the last one, which is the Citywide Diversity and Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee, which the mayor is on, along with council members Nis and Cormac. So I do want to say, this is going to be worked through July, and at least on my committees, I'm really hoping that we'll work through July and come back with something back in August. I can't see the city manager's face because my notes are over it, so August. So thank you. And I look really forward to a really robust discussion here so that we can move forward on addressing racism. Lastly, I just remembered, I do believe, history is very important. What happened here in Palo Alto in terms of racism is also important to discuss and to know about, so that we know what had taken place here in Palo Alto. So while we do want to reach out and find out regionally what racism there was, but also Palo Alto itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Tanaka?
Sure. So I'm really glad to see you guys taking up this topic, because I think what's really important for the HRC to do is to go really deep on these issues, have a very robust debate. Because on council, we have so many different things going on that it's hard for us to really dive in and understand the pros and cons and how to kind of tune things to make things better. So I really look forward to you guys doing this and trying to make sure that we do the best for the city. One thing I just want to mention, and this wasn't part of the formal motion, and so this is just more my personal opinion at this point, but so I think a lot of minorities have faced racism in Palo Alto, not just brown and black people. I mean, I myself, I was biking down on Middlefield, and I had a bunch of this minivan pulled up to me with a bunch of 5 white guys in there, 5 young white guys started yelling at me, saying, "Hey, you brought the coronavirus," all this kind of stuff. And so I think, this is as an Asian, right? So there's a lot of anti-Asian stuff going on, not just, the current police brutality stuff. So I guess I don't want to expand the scope, but that's my own personal feel, is that there's racism all around, and I think we want to eliminate all of it, right? And so, but anyways, I know you have a pretty big scope already, and you guys have a limited amount of time, but I'm hoping that you guys are able to make headway for all the minorities in our city, not just brown and black.
Thank you so much. I think racism to different individuals all come from the same root issue. So if we can get to the root issue, I think we start addressing some of the significant challenges. I would like to.
Well, I guess I just want to say, I mean, what's happened is just because the coronavirus originated from China, so a lot of Asians are getting this blowback saying, "Oh, it causes us to lose jobs. It caused, it's not, as far as I know, that's not the reason. But a lot of people, a lot of Asians, especially Chinese, are getting accused of this kind of stuff, which to me is pure racism."
Yes, and it started in February. It's not a recent thing. It started at the very beginning. So I would, at this point, what I'd like to do is, to my distinguished fellow commissioners, give each of you 5 minutes. I know you've had a lot of time to do personal research. You have a lot of your different angles. So I want to do a quick round robin. Everybody give their initial thoughts, spend 5 minutes, let us know everything that you have on your mind about this. Then I'm going to start walking through a basic framework of a plan, and how we deal with some of the things how do we organize our work, and how do we get the right result? Because at the end of the day, it's great to have some discussion, but I really want us to have a finished product and some impact, and deliver to council some actionable items. And also, we are going to hear a lot from the public. We are going to hear a lot from the public. So although it might not all be in our scope, we should be collecting that information and passing it up the chain, even if it's, hey, we heard from 100 people, and we heard this 4 times, we heard this 3 times, this is a commonality. So at least council has visibility to what we're hearing in all the work that we're going to be doing. So we're going to do this in a very democratic way, alphabetically. Last time we started at the beginning of the alphabet. So this time we're going to start with Commissioner Stinger and work our way back. Commissioner Lee being the last one, and then I'll be the last to speak. All right. Vice Chair. And you have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. I'll begin with the 8 can't wait. My sense with the 8 can't wait is that our goals are to come at it with an appreciation of the strengths of PAPD, but also a statement of the concerns about the PAPD's interactions with the community. And I think we can do that in several ways. My timeline shows a study session with the chief and a representative of the union, so that we can hear more from the people on the who are seeing our citizens every day. I think we need a study session with the community. Some of these ought to be with collaboratively with the Citizens Advisory Committee. They've spent a lot of time with the police force and should be able to give us some good insights as well. My goal would be to have a report that shows what are the success criteria for the 8, what in cities where it has been adopted, what has made it work, and are we there in Palo Alto? What are the characteristics of a failed implementation? How do we avoid those? But then I'd like to go beyond that to say what policies build on the 8. and identify those as places for additional study in our report out to the council. I want to look at, I hope we identify cultural changes needed in the police force. And I think we need to be very careful. We need to be very specific about how we want to collect data so that we know at the end of a year if we in fact have made our goals. I think that some of the changes that have been tried, sensitivity training, in some areas have had some effectiveness, but maybe not enough. And so we need to be very careful to have a plan in place to implement as successfully as we can, but also measure our implementation. Moving on to the second piece, racism in Palo Alto and our understanding of the history of racism and the contemporary issues. This is something that I was really, I was excited about and continue to be excited about. I think it's important to have a goal of increased awareness of historic racial inequities locally and the contemporary consequences. I want to bring it home. I also realize, however, that since the council's recommended referral to us, a lot of activity is going on in the community. And that's great, but that leads me to say that increasing awareness may not be the end goal. It has to be tied to an understanding of which policies we want to change and the priorities of that changes. So we need to take the data that we find from Palo Alto Historical Society. Stanford has, the archivist has agreed to, I've had some discussions with the archivist to help us look at accurate statistical data and experiential data of what it's like to be on campus, what's it like to be a professional in Palo Alto. I want to look at both sides, the numbers of professionals, the numbers of people, but also what's it like to walk down the street. I think we saw a video the other day, the look, what's it like to be in Palo Alto? But I want to tie it, my request would be that we tie it to action items, prioritizing action items. Some of the inputs I want to look at are, as I said, the Palo Alto History Museum. We have had in the past a speaker, Jennifer Eberhardt, who has helped us with understanding biases, and she's done a lot of statistical work.
That's 5 minutes.
She's part of a lab at Stanford Spark. 1 minute. Okay. I'll just say that I've talked to her, the director of the Spark Lab, and they're willing to help us with looking at models for racism and how we talk about race and how we have a community conversation.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Commissioner Savage?
Can I just interject 1 minute, Chair Smith? So Mary will be the timekeeper for the 5 minutes. So when you see Mary come on the screen, you will know that your 5 minutes is up for this session. So just wanted to let you know that. Sorry for interjecting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank the City Council for having the faith and confidence in the HRC to undertake the 8 Can't Wait policies and the history of Black and Brown people. I'll have more to say about all of this once we get into the discussion tonight for the work plan, but that's it for now.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Lee.
Hi, good evening. I don't have a particular order in which I'm going to be speaking, but I'm just going to talk about some of my thoughts. So, I agree with a lot of the public commenters that certainly 8 Can't Wait is just the beginning. It's a bare minimum. I think even this commission, based on our last meeting, And we rarely agree on anything, but if you look at the motions that we made at the last meeting, I think we all agree that this is a first step and a bare minimum. And so I really encourage the city to not only talk about additional measures that it can take, but to actually get around to actually implementing them, because a lot of times we spend time talking about it but not actually doing it. So I implore the city and our commission to, as we focus on the task at hand, that we also look to other things that we can do to advance this cause. The second point I wanted to make is, I really hope that through this process, that it's truly an independent and community-driven process, and one where there's an independent review of these 8 can't wait policies and whether the PAPD fully complies with them. I think certainly the people who work for our police department are good people. I've known quite a few of them, but notwithstanding, I don't think we can expect even good people to be unbiased in judging themselves or their own policies. So, I really want to implore this commission to be an independent and community-driven body to provide that oversight and to provide that independent review, so that there is accountability and credibility within the community about where the policies currently stand and what changes need to happen. My third point, as we all are all very busy, I hope we can count on staff during this time. Again, lots of very well-intentioned and very good people on staff, but during my 3 years on this commission, there have been times when the staff's response hasn't been nearly as timely, responsive, or as complete as I would have hoped it would have been. And in order to do this important work, we're going to need to rely on staff and to rely on them to provide timely, responsive, and complete information. And I hope moving forward that someone from the police department will be attending our meetings. This is the second meeting we've had as a commission, and we have 5 or 6 staff members on the call, but no one from the police department. So I really do hope that they make the time to participate in our meeting so that we can complete the work at hand. The fourth point is, I really hope that this commission steps up. This is going to take a lot of time, and I know in the past we've been reluctant to have long meetings or to have a lot of meetings or to really spend a lot of time working on some of these issues. So I really do hope that we just dig deep and find the time to do this important work. And I hope this commission now realizes its purpose in this community, and the fact that we, by municipal code, are here to recommend policy and action to the council. Again, I know this commission has been reluctant to play that function in the past, but we really have an opportunity to step up to the bat and really do our community a good service by actually recommending change and recommending policy to our council. And I also hope that our council listens to this HRC. I mean, even though we submitted a letter to them based off our last meeting, it was barely mentioned at the council meeting. I know the chair read it during public comment, but we are an official advisory body to the council, and I hope that staff and council really gives us the due that we're owed, and actually listen to and consider some of the recommendations that we put forward. A lot of the actions recently just don't suggest that the council or staff take us very seriously, and I hope that they do. I'll speak more to the specific proposal at hand, but again, I think this is going to take a lot of work, and we need to put in the time. And I hope we provide the public with ample time to provide public comment so that they can tell us about their stories, tell us about the change that they want to see. I think 2 minutes is not nearly enough for the type of work that we need to do. And if it means that we have 3 to 5 hour meetings, I'm willing to put in that work, and I hope my colleagues are as well. We're here to be a conduit for the community, and I hope that we provide them the time and forum to do that. We also have a lot of experts in this community, a lot of lawyers, a lot of civil rights experts, a lot of folks who we can really leverage to do this work. Not only so that we can make a better recommendation, but so that we can make a independent and community-driven one. So I hope as part of this process, we really are open to receiving comments from experts.
Thank you for the comments. All right. Mary, you could start my time now. it's become abundantly clear to me that in Palo Alto, our police force has a perception issue. There is a gap in certain parts of our community with trust and credibility. In between, knowing both sides of the story, I know that there is some significant challenges on both sides, but I think our goal right now, particularly as we start the dialogue around 8 Can't Wait, when we start the dialogue about police reform, is not just the policy, but where do we see transparency? Where do we see accountability? Where do we see this moving forward? I would like to disagree with my fellow commissioner. I've spent a lot of time on the phone with staff over the last 3 weeks. I probably have between the city staff spent about 20 to 25 hours on the phone talking about several different issues. First, from being the pastor of the oldest Black church in the community to a lot of different challenges. So I believe at face value that the city is willing to make some changes, and let us figure out how do we get there and how do we work. The reality is that as the HRC, we do serve the entire community. That means we serve those that are in the police force and those that get policed, those that are Black, those that are brown. So we need in this report to be as fair to all sides and really ask hard questions in civil ways to get to the best solution. I know we've had some significant reports of issues with our police department. I have the unfortunate thing to grow up in a town that we got federally investigated by the police every year. So I've seen really, really bad policing. I've seen bad policing cost people a lot of lives. So I know we have issues, but I believe that we can get to a better place here than I've seen historically in other places. Those are my thoughts. Mary, can you please put up on the screen sort of the working plan that we've moved forward with and sort of what we've discussed with staff and what we've discussed with the city? The reality is that we as a commission have very limited time. We need to do a lot of work. Commissioner Lee was very correct in that. And what I wanted to do this meeting was organize our work, start assigning some subtasks, and start moving forward. I think we have, as the motion is, I copied it from it to the, we have been given by the council to work through 8 Can't Wait. We are working right now. First meeting would be public comment and expert panel. That will be our regular HRC meeting on the Thursday night. I'm willing to start the meeting a little early or extend it a little later. What I want to be able to do there is to really advertise out on all channels, social media, XYZ, from the city personally, and have people come and tell all what they want to hear about policing. I really think that this is an opportunity to gather data. I think Council Member Tanaka said it best. He said, you know, city council can't go as deep because they have so much on the plate. We're going to do it. 8 Can't Wait. And the reality is that if you look at how the resolution was written by the city, 8 Can't Wait is just the tip of the iceberg. So we want to be able to address that with some expert stuff, hear from the community, but we also want to be able to say to staff or say to council, this is also what we're hearing from the community. These are some other trends. These are some other themes that we're hearing. These are some other experiences that we are hearing. And we want to do that. At that night, we will have PD with us. I am still working on some experts. I've spoken to Judge Cordell. Her schedule doesn't allow us to be with us that day. We've also reached out to 8 Can't Wait. We've also the chief is confirmed to be with us for that meeting. We are working on some of the expert panels. We are also want the public to come. And this is where we start getting into the nitty gritty of the points of what 8 Can't Wait is, what are the different things. We hear from the chief, we hear from experts, we hear from community. And I wanna make this just a session to absorb information, however long it takes. I mean, I do agree with Commissioner Lee on this. There is a lot of thought. People have put a lot of thought. People have a lot of emotion. People have a lot of input. And we want to create a space for people to speak freely and create in that. The next group, I'm still waiting with staff because people did have vacations planned long before we started this process. So we're working some final details and I should have this worked out. We're going to do a working group A with us and the police department. And what we're going to try to do is dive deep into the policy, ask hard questions around the policy. How do policies get changed? Are there things that are required by council? Are there things that are required by contract with the union? Are there things that are that can be changed by just changing the policy manual internal? What's the transparency? What is the consequences? We're going to work through all of that in that working group. And at the end of that, we will have, we will start doing our final draft of recommendation. We should have that all together by the week of the 27th of July. What I would like to be able to do is create a grid that would go to the city and go to council. So, this is the 8 Can't Wait. This is the current policy. This is the, and this is the needed change, or is it all right? What is it? How does it do it? The grid will be on the front. If we need to do more explanation in the back of it, we can. But what I would like to do is really present council with very clear information on where we are. We've reviewed it ourselves. We've written up our own stuff. This is how we see it. Also, if we could scroll down a little bit more, Mary, this is a broad conversation. We are just to kick off. Councilmember Koo said it best. The council has, I think, 4 or 5 working groups with 4 or 5 different things that they're looking at. Whatever we are hearing, everything has a value that we're hearing. So I really want to be able to send to council, we're hearing this, we're hearing that, we're hearing this, we're hearing that in these different areas. So they at least, can have the opportunity to do that. The final thing is the community report. I think this is the greatest opportunity we have. Many people get very focused on the 8 Can't Wait, but I will tell you, I am starting to receive emails. I received an email from a mother with probably 100 megabytes of documentation and letters and back and forth, dealing with the challenge of policing and city response and all of this. There are a lot of stories out there. At one of the protests, I believe the one that was on Juneteenth, it was really impactful because we had 8 speakers that shared their history of being Black in Palo Alto. And what was particularly stunning to me was you had somebody that went to high school in '71 and you had the person that graduated this year and their stories almost matched. So this is the initial framework. I want to open this up to discussion and hear feedback from commissioners and the liaisons from the council that are part of this ad hoc discussion. And if staff has anything to add, please add at this time. And raise your hand, please, if you want to say or state anything. Yes, Commissioner Lee.
Hi. So before we get to the timeline here, and I appreciate you putting that together, I did want to just respectfully, with all due respect, disagree with the chair's prior comments. And I don't think our job as a commission is necessarily to be fair to all sides or to be advocates for the police department. I strongly believe that the system itself is already tilted heavily in that favor already, and is one of the reasons why we're doing this work now. My primary concern is, again, doing what's best and what's right for minority communities and communities who are impacted by police misconduct. So, while I appreciate the chair's thoughts and opinions on this, that's going to be my focus.
So
with regards to the
Commissioner Lee, can I make one quick response to that? When I said be fair to the police, we have a significant issue in the city of Palo Alto. 70% of their calls are originated by people in the community calling people that they think are suspicious. So when I say be fair to the police, I'm also talking about a culture in the city that expects police to show up to police them. So I'm sorry I wasn't clear on that comment, but I want to make sure that we don't abdicate the responsibility of the citizenship to add to their part of the challenge. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that.
I would agree with you. I think this is something that us as individuals, as a community, needs to work on as well. But certainly there are, notwithstanding those cultural and societal issues, there's issues within the system itself. With regards to the timeline, I'd be very interested in hopefully during this meeting getting some additional detail, specifically regarding how much time we're giving members of the public to provide public comment, to the extent that we can really block out some serious time in advance and give people a better expectation of how much time that they have. I mean, on our meeting agenda, it says 5 minutes, but I don't think we've ever done 5 minutes. So if we can really just be very upfront with how much time folks have and dedicate as much time as possible, I think would be good. And to the extent that, sorry, go ahead.
How much time do you think is appropriate?
I think at least 2 hours would be
no,
good
per
for public
comment.
I would say 5 minutes would be good.
Okay.
As a starting point. And in terms of the expert panel, I'm very thankful that you booked the chief to come and speak with us, but I do hope that the panel is very heavily weighted towards folks unaffiliated with law enforcement, which it sounds like it is. And to the extent that you can circulate that tentative list to the commission in advance, I think would be helpful, so that if any one of us identifies any gaps that might be missing, we can go out and try to find an expert to fill that gap or to fill that perspective. So if we can get that in advance and not be sort of surprised the day or two before, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. One of the things I was going to bring up there was each of us bring different facets to the commission. So I don't believe it should only be the chair or staff that populate the commission. So if they have recommendations or it shouldn't only be staff or commission members that populate the panel. So if we have recommendations from other commissioners, I would love to hear them, and we would love to bring them in, because I believe the richness of the conversation is added by having as many voices as possible.
Chair Smith, City Manager Shikata would like to say something.
Yes, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. Perhaps just to expand on my earlier comments and reinforcing the discussion you're having now, maybe just a suggestion in terms of how you put in context the work you're doing with what the City Council is taking up, that at the risk of maybe reading a lot of precision into the Council's direction, this is the one element of the 5 or so specific actions that the Council took a few weeks ago that has a timeline to it. So I think, Chair, you'd referred to this as an opening, and in many ways, this is the opening chapter to what is a new phase of work in a variety of specific areas. And so to the extent, if it is helpful, given the tight timeline that the Commission has to identify your immediate, the responses to your immediate assignment related to the 8 can't wait, but as has been pointed out, those are really kind of a starting point and a foundation. So through the conversations that you'll be having among the Commission as well as with the community, I suspect you'll identify both what applies specifically to those 8, as well as perhaps a series or a list of other issues that you'd want to refer to the City Council that should be looked at more closely. And through the variety of ad hoc committees that have now been established, and again, just a quick recap on everything from the police policy manual and data collection and hiring practices that are all in the operation of the current policing model, to transparency and accountability, which describes in some ways what happens when things go wrong, and when, or at least there are allegations of things going wrong, and what's the process by which those issues are evaluated and then ultimately resolved and then communicated to the community, to alternative models. You know, we've heard of other cities and other organizations that have different models, so that's another body of work. And then finally, the citywide diversity and inclusion. So all of which have somewhat discrete areas of follow-up that the Council will be doing deep dives themselves. So the work that the Commission will be doing over the next month or so really does set the stage for the additional work that the Council and staff will take on. So if that's a helpful context for you, then I would offer that. And again, that staff is here to provide support.
Thank you. Councilmember Koo.
So I just wanted to clarify. So according to the agenda today, you know, I think you're trying to establish a framework for how to move forward with Council's ask or direction. Are you, Commissioner Lee, asking for 5 minutes for each of the commenters today, or during the town hall that is being scheduled down the line? Because that's, I think, where the Commission is gathering and listening to the community.
Well, I think we've already done public comment today, so it's too late. But in any future meeting that the Commission has, whether it's the town hall or any of these work meetings that we're doing, I would like to request that the public be given 5 minutes each.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I think we also have a limited time on these HRC committee meetings. I know that I have to jump off at exactly 7 because I have another Parks and Rec Commission meeting to attend. So, you know, so I think that, you know, we need to accomplish the goal of what the agenda is. So I hear you, and I just want to make sure that, you know, if it's a community meeting, especially a town hall, that is given the amount of time so that you can hear from the general public in terms of their concerns and even their suggestions and recommendations, so that can be taken into consideration by the committee. And I also wanted to just say that, you know, Vice Chair Stinger's comments and suggestions were very, very thoughtful. So thank you so much for that. And if that might be something that we can work around in terms of setting metrics and so forth with the 8 can't wait, maybe that might be a start into looking into all the 8 can't wait policies. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Council Member. Commissioner Lee, you have your hand up?
I wanted to ask if you had any specific framework for that for the next meeting in terms of inviting experts. Were you going to give them sort of amount of time each to present on sort of whatever topic they wanted as it relates to this, or were you going to give them specific questions to answer? Wondering what your initial thoughts were on the next meeting. Maybe we can just go meeting by meeting and flesh it out.
Okay, so basically, I was going to give time based on number of experts. If you have two, you can give them the 15 or 20 minutes. I don't think anybody could listen to somebody more than 20 minutes without like dozing off, right? Or losing focus. So give them a 15, 20 minutes to give us some overview, also frame the discussion before public comments. And it would depend on the number of experts. Because I think the right number is about 2 or 3 individuals. I think we want to hear somebody that is deeply versed in police reform, somebody that is deeply versed in actual police policy. One thing that we have to really also, somebody that we have invited, hopefully they will come, is the police union. Because the reality is as you read the newspaper, there is a lot of pushback from police unions on certain changes. So we want to get them in the conversation because I believe culture and buy-in from your field positions is really critical. So we'll have them as part of it. We are hopeful to have them as part of the discussion. Is that helpful?
So maybe can you list the experts that you have right now and what categories do you think they would fit?
So we have the chief. Okay. That's one. I have a call out to Stanford to somebody from the Spark Lab. I'll reach out to Megan, who is the public relation, not the community advocate person. Can you say that one again? We reached out to Stanford, the community relations person, to get somebody from the Spark Lab to work with us. So we're waiting for a response.
What is the Spark Lab?
That's Jennifer Eberhardt's group.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
The ones that work with Oakland.
Okay.
We have an ask out to Campaign Zero, and to see if they can get somebody out. Also, we have an invitation out also to the police union, and we have the chief of police that has confirmed. Did I say him already?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are at this moment.
So I would like to suggest that we include someone from the ACLU or a similar organization, as well as a law professor from Stanford or some other local law school. I think having a lawyer, I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not this kind of lawyer. So I think a lawyer would be very helpful.
That would be, if you can do some research on that and give us some references, I think we would be open to, we're open to it. It's hard pinning a lot of these experts down because for some reason they're in high demand now. So, one of the things.
When is the last date you would absolutely need to know if someone can?
Let me talk with staff about that. They'll text me in a few minutes with that. We have Councilmember Tanaka.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to some of the comments I've heard, which is I really like, Chair Smith, what you're trying to do. You're really trying to hear a diverse set of perspectives, and I think that's really important because you probably could hear from, a larger, more diverse set of perspectives than we can on council, given your guys' focus and time. So I think that's really great. And I also have to agree with what the city manager said, which is, definitely first and foremost to do the job at hand. And if you guys have time to do extra, that's great. But for myself as a council member, I actually appreciate if you guys color outside the lines too. So if you guys have time to kind of go beyond, because for us in council, we're so focused on, well, the problem is we're not focused on this particular issue as much as you guys are. And so we can't go as deep as you guys can. And so I think you guys could go deeper and perhaps provide that kind of forward guidance that we can't get on our own. So I would appreciate that actually. And speaking about police unions, I don't know if you saw, but probably about like early June, there were a bunch of articles that came out on, NPR, on Washington Post, New York Times, about the effect of police unionization and police brutality. It was actually quite interesting. So, so I think it's really great that you're getting union representative to talk about that, right? Because sometimes
we're trying. They haven't committed yet.
Yeah, no, I understand. But I think that's quite interesting. And so if you haven't, and maybe all of you guys have seen this already, but there's actually a lot of really good articles on this that talk about how, as police forces unionized, how police brutality increased while the crimes actually decreased. So I think it's interesting to see that trend, and it'll be interesting to see how if the HRC can help work on this for our city, how we resolve this issue.
I agree with that. Thank you so much. I haven't heard from Commissioner Stinger or Commissioner Savage, and I really want to give them an opportunity to interject. I believe they always give great wisdom when they speak. Commissioner Stinger, and then we'll have Commissioner Savage. You have to unmute, Commissioner.
I'm very enthusiastic about the work plan that you've put forth, and I appreciate Commissioner Lee's fleshing it out some. I look at it as what I heard was 5 goals: reform, policy, culture, model cities, and metrics. And I think we're pretty close to having speakers speak to each of those. You talked about the chief, union representative, maybe an ACLU lawyer, somebody from Campaign 8, somebody from the data collection Spark Labs. The other source that we might be able to look to is the county, as they've put recommendations together for change beyond the 8 in the county. They may have some legal staff that could help us appreciate the objective changes.
I like how you made that so succinct. Thank you. Commissioner Savage, would you like to add?
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like you've got a real handle on speakers coming up for the next meeting, and that's great. My personal interest is 8 Can't Wait and the policies versus the current policy manual from the police department. So, so I'm hoping that I will be able to have a discussion with some members of the command staff of the Palo Police Department and go through the 8 Can't Wait one by one. See which ones are done, we can put those aside. And the ones that aren't completed, we'll see if there's a timeline, if the wording can be changed, corrected, revised in the police manual, and just to get that done with. As some of the earlier speakers said, 8 Can't Wait is not nearly enough. That may be, but it's the first step no matter what. So I'd like to really tackle that, get that done with, and then proceed from there.
Thank you so much for that. You lead into my next point. The working group final recommendation meeting, we are tentatively going to have somebody from PD with us going through each one. I want to encourage each person to go on the 8 Can't Wait. They have a website. They have some really good written material around what it is. So to prepare for that, maybe I'll have staff email that to everybody so they can read it ahead of time. And that's going to be the opportunity to do that level of work that you're talking about, because I think we need to, in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, really be doing our own research. So when we do get there, we do understand policy. But I think one of the questions the public will ask us is transparency. What are the consequences of violating this action, and how quickly do we see that? I think Atlanta has put pressure on a lot of other police departments in the country with their response to Rayshard Brooks. incident, they moved within 2 to 3 days. So I think a lot of people in the public, rightly so, are asking, how do we get to that level of speed in situations? So, you know, these are going to be some of the harder questions that we're going to have to ask, because I think the public is going to say to us, great, you have 8 can't wait, but what does that mean as far as transparency and as far as the speed of response if something is done? And I think that's where the credibility will come in. I saw Director O'Kane come on the screen earlier. Did you want to say something, or was that just a technical issue?
Sorry, that was a technical issue. I lost connection and had to get on.
Okay, sorry about that. Commissioner Lee.
I wanted to get some clarification on something that Commissioner Savage alluded to. Are we as individual commissioners empowered to go and speak with members of staff or the command staff to, as part of our individual research, or are we doing that, you know, through these meetings? Because I want to make sure that we're all operating on the same playing field and we are having access to staff or not.
We are doing it at the meetings. The research, I believe, and Megan can say this, the city is going to provide some like information as far as policies and where, and this, that, and third for us. Plus, we will provide the 8 can't wait information, but we won't deal with the staff directly on this. I do have one thing that I am working with the city manager and the chief of police. We are recording a frank conversation around police reform. This was sparked out of our work when we wrote the letter. When did we write the letter? I think we wrote the letter right after George Floyd died, and as an immediate response. So this is a continuation of that work. I see that you took the mic off, city manager.
I was just going to chime in if it was helpful, and yes, certainly, and appreciate Chair helping us with this. This is, as I mentioned, part of some information that we'd like to roll out. We've gotten quite a bit of community interest in what's happening, what's going on in Palo Alto related to race and equity. And so this would be a good opportunity for us, Police Chief, myself, and Chair Smith, to talk about here's what's happening. And so really it would pick up on tonight's conversation in terms of some of the next steps, as well as we've already started to talk about the actions that the council has gotten us moving on. One of which we haven't talked about tonight, and I would just note it, that Commissioner Lee's background, the mural, which is being painted today, and if the inspiration points, I may even be able to turn around my camera because I'm overlooking Hamilton Avenue, where you would be able to see the finished product. So that's another area, you know, as we talk about the community conversations, community expression, and the work ahead. So that's just a little background on that upcoming video.
Okay.
So
Commissioner Lee,
on my question.
Commissioner Lee, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just to close on my question. So none of us should be reaching out to staff as part of our personal research, right? That's sort of the ground rule moving forward. Because it sounded like Commissioner Savage was going to reach out to command staff about the 8 can't wait stuff. So I wanted to make sure that the rules were clear to all of us, so that if that's happening, if it's not happening, we're all have equal access.
So this is the one thing I will say. Commissioner Savage has relationships with people in the community, with people in the policing community because of her history. That would be like asking me not to reach out to other pastors and talking about God. I mean, there are built-in relationships.
I mean, but we're talking about
if she has a conversation with people and it's her personal conversation, I cannot stop that. If you want to reach out to staff, go ahead.
Okay, well, as long as that is clear.
If they respond or don't, I don't have control over that.
Okay. And also regarding the video that you're recording, you're doing that as an individual, right?
Yeah. I'm doing that. No,
Well,
I'm
well,
doing.
I mean-
no, I'm doing that as the pastor of the oldest African American church in Palo Alto.
Okay. I just wanted to point out that, you know, as beautiful as the statement was that was issued, it did not indicate that. I mean, it used your title, and you know,
So
according to our Commissioner Handbook, we need to make it clear when we're not speaking on behalf of the commission. So
Yes.
since it was on a city website, I think just add a little disclaimer. I do this all the time as a lawyer. Add a disclaimer that, again, you're not speaking for the commission, you're just speaking in your other capacities would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll operate just like the council operates. I want to get back to the core issue. Commissioner Stinger, I'm going to have you share, and then I'd like to see if I can get a motion and a second and a vote to move forward with this work plan, because I would love to honor the time that the Park and Recs Commission has given us and allow them to have their time and their broadcast time at the right time. So I'd like us to at least work this motion out and move forward. But I'd like to have Vice Chair speak, please.
I have two comments to make, and I also want to move quickly on to the motion and the next piece of conversation. But I feel strongly, and if it's inappropriate, then please just say so. I think if we as a commission ask Commissioner Savage to be the representative to the task force, that would be the mechanism. It wouldn't be a casual conversation, but an official representation. And as you're on the video, I would ask that you do represent us as our chair. I think there's a way to say, when it comes to a recommendation or a final decision, saying, I'm speaking personally now. This is not an issue that has come before the commission. But when we talk about visions and wishes and hopes for the community, you are our chair, and I would like you to speak to that.
Thank you for that vote of confidence, Commissioner Stinger. Councilmember Koo.
Thank you. Just two things. First, I want to also just to bring up, there were two surveys that were done when we were considering the budget. One was the city's survey, and the second one was my own, just to gather more information from the general public. And both of it had very high percentage of interest ensuring that our safety, public safety is intact and that they are here to protect and serve. Then two, I wanted to say, if there's any way to look at the 8 can't wait and see where is the oppression and suppression actions and policies that you can change, that would be really superb. Especially, you know, for Black lives and brown lives. That's the one area that for over 400 years that we have not been able to move forward on. It keeps on taking one step, 2 steps forward, going back again. So in this charge from the council, please take into the consideration the oppression and suppression bits too.
We definitely will, and I think this is going to be a robust conversation. Okay, I am ready to accept a motion and a second on the work plan. Let me create a motion. I move that we move ahead with the work plan as presented this evening. Mary, can we copy and paste the work plan and just put it in the motion? and just say as the work plan below. So because this evening doesn't give a good reference point. Can I get a second on the motion?
I second.
Okay. I just want to explain to those that are watching, our commission currently stands at 7 because we had a special meeting. We only have 4 commissioners here, so we need all 4 commissioners to vote in favor of the work plan to move forward. Yes, Commissioner Singer.
I had a question. Are we voting on the whole work plan or the work plan with regard to the 8 can't wait?
We can split up into 2 motions.
I wanted to elaborate on the second part of it.
We can, Commissioner Savage, will you accept a friendly amendment that this motion is to move on the work plan just
Yes.
on 8 can't wait? Thank you. We have a friendly amendment that this is only this motion, this part of the work plan, we're only voting on 8 can't wait.
Chair Smith, can I interject? It would be helpful for staff and for the members of the public if the motion was clearer than it was, because at this point it says as presented. So I'd really like it to be specific language of we.
That's why I'm asking her to place the plan, paste the plan below, so
Okay.
everybody can see the exact plan, so that there's detail there. Mary, is there any way just to show the Google Doc for now, and then we can paste it at a Thank you. Sorry, Mary. So we are timeline, format, and additional recommendations. That's what we are currently voting on. The timeline, the format, and the additional recommendations. Is everybody clear on that? Exactly. All right. Is that clear enough, Minka? She's bringing it back up. She's putting it in another document. You're muted.
I'll wait till I see it back on. I just wanted to have that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
That is much better. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Wait, we are up for discussion. Commissioner Lee.
So I'd like to make a substitute motion. It's effectively the what's currently on there, but with the following additions. Mary, would you mind scrolling up just a little bit? That for the expert panel meeting, that part be at least 2 hours, and that each individual commissioner be permitted to invite one expert, at least one expert, if provided to the chair by Friday.
We have a substitute.
Would that be enough time Friday?
We need 48 hours.
Could you repeat that, Stephen?
So that substitute motion is, everything that's above, plus for the expert panel meeting, that the expert portion of it be at least 2 hours, and that each commissioner be permitted to invite one speaker, one expert,
A point of protocol. Would this not be a friendly amendment rather than a substitute motion? Because it's an addition to the overall motion, not a replacement of motion.
Well, so it may be friendly if you accept it, but if you don't accept it, then it's going to be a substitute motion.
Okay, let's go with substitute motion.
2 hours in each commissioner will be permitted to invite one speaker. I'd also like to add that public comment should be at least 5 minutes per speaker for all of the meetings. And just to clarify, the expert panel meeting, the expert portion of that meeting should be 2 hours, so that we have 2 hours of expert testimony.
You do realize that motion basically null and voids all the ability of the chair to organize and run the meeting, right? So you're basically saying the chair can't run the meeting as he sees fit in that motion.
I understand what I'm doing.
Okay. Do we have a second on the motion?
Actually, can I break up my substitute motion? Can you vote on them separately?
The motion's already on the floor. You can make another substitute motion. Go ahead.
Okay, then I'll make another substitute motion that the expert portion of the panel meeting be 2 hours.
Wait a second.
Sorry, was there a second there? I heard someone in the background.
No, that was Mary asking you. All right.
Can I ask, was the first substitute motion withdrawn, or is it failed? What was the first substitute?
It was failed. There was no second.
Thank you.
Second substitute motion.
Okay, so this one has no second. Okay. My next substitute motion would be that each commissioner.
How many? Okay, we'll go ahead with the substitute motion.
That each commissioner be permitted to invite one expert.
Okay.
And then the final one would be that public comment should be 5 minutes for all meetings. And I appreciate your indulgence with my motions.
Do we have a second? Thank you so much for your motions, Commissioner Lee. One of the critical things I think for all of those that are watching, one of the critical abilities of a chair is to organize a meeting as is needed. So generally you won't see motions on times and limits done because that would void the chair. So can we go back to the initial motion, please? We had a second on it. I'll take a vote now. Commissioner Lee.
And abstain.
If I might make an observation, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Commissioner. Yes, City Manager.
I noted that early on you made reference to needing 4 affirmative votes in order to pass this motion. I'm not a parliamentarian expert, but I believe because you're effectively simply setting the order of business for your next meetings.
Oh, it's a simple majority.
A simple majority should suffice because you're basically deciding how to run your next meeting, which would seem to be a appropriate discussion for or decision for the body that's present to make. Again, if it's a formal recommendation to the council, that might be a different matter, but that's not the case here tonight.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just to clarify it, I mean, I'm not a parliamentarian either, but I am a lawyer. The municipal code indicates that all action of this body requires 4 affirmative votes.
Of those present.
No, it just says 4 affirmative votes, period.
So
we do run into this with the council from time to time. And
yes.
Again, if it's an action, I guess it's the question of the definition of an action. And here, you're not actually taking an action, you're just
setting an agenda. So it's quite as simply, we're doing agenda planning for the next month instead of us taking an action. So in our traditional agenda planning atmosphere, we just go with who is at the agenda planning meeting as a simple majority. All right, so we will go with a simple majority. Thank you so much, Council Member Koo and City Manager, for helping us clarify that. All right, Commissioner Savage, what is your vote on this? And Commissioner Stinger?
Aye.
I vote aye. We have a simple majority on our agenda and our work plan for this task. Is there any, I just want to make a few closing observations as the chairperson for this commission. Okay, I just want to really clarify something. These issues are going to be extremely charged, and we can have our opinion, but I want us to be clear on what our manual says. In page 15, it says the chairperson's role, the chair shall represent the view and opinions of the commission committee as a whole when speaking on its behalf. The chair or his or her designee is the media point of contact for information regarding the commission activity. When speaking in public, for members, when speaking in public, state whether your comments represent your appointed body or they represent your own views. Members must not represent their views as the body unless it has been a definitive vote on hand. I just want us to, as we deal with things that are highly charged, highly political, and we are a deliberative body, I encourage everybody to speak your free mind, but to please be very clear in your distinction when you make those comments that you're speaking for yourself and not for the commission. We just want to clarify that for everybody before we go into this, which I feel is going to be way more deliberative and way more charged and something that has a lot of different opinions attached to it. Do we have any other comments, issues, concerns? Commissioner Lee, I see you have your hands up.
Did the vice chair have other motions that she wanted to bring forth? I thought I heard a couple ideas for ones during discussion.
Yes, we have not dealt with the other half of our work plan. Currently, we have the August meeting being the public forum commentary on the work plan I proposed earlier. I just wanted us to get through the first part of the more mechanical part, which was dealing with the policy. And then in August 13th, public forum on experiences of Black and Brown in Palo Alto, and we can work history in on that. So that was my initial framework. Commissioner Stinger, I would love to hear how you'd like to modify and work with that.
I was just hoping that we could flesh that out a little bit. No disagreement with what you have. I'd like to maybe make a comment that the deliverable would be just a summary of the history, not a report, a timeline. The experiences that we want to share might be stories or videos. And all of it should be related to policy recommendations.
Okay. How would you like to phrase that motion, please?
May I see, Mary, what we have so far on the Google Doc? The part that we cut out of.
Timeline community report, public forum on experiences of Black and Brown on August 13th. So this, where it says timeline community report.
The end goal of the public forum would be to.
That has to get cut out of the original motion and made into its own motion, Mary. Yeah, just that timeline part.
The community report would include a succinct history. And be geared to recommendations for further policy, and be geared to, be geared to further policy recommendations.
We have a motion on the floor. Let me repeat it. The community report will have a succinct history and be geared towards future policy. We are looking to have, do you want that ready for the August 13th piece? Or do you want that to come out of the August 13th?
I'm sorry, no, that's a good point of clarification. The community report, which comes out of the public forum.
Okay, so this is the deliverable from the public forum, and we'll say the history be brief or clear. Do you want?
Let's see, the community report, which comes out of the community forum, will include a brief history.
Mm-hmm.
And be geared toward future policy recommendations. Or maybe it's priorities.
Can I say, will include a very focused history?
That's better.
Yeah, because I don't think we want a brief history. I think we want a focused history around the challenges specifically given to us by council. So that, because there's a great book, it's probably like 200 or 300 pages, that's Black History in Silicon Valley. Somebody gave it to me. Beautiful book. But I think what we need to do is really get the 5 to 10 pages of the challenges in the history so that council can have that. So do you think that's a focus history would be?
That would be better. And
okay. So that's the motion. The way that motion is going to be carried out is the timeline with the community report and the public forum and experiences of Black and Brown in Palo Alto on August 13th. Does that sound like, is that solid for you? Is that clear for everybody?
Let me try a second sentence. The commission will also partner.
Okay.
With organizations with art and organizations to I don't know what the word is, to recognize the spirit of Palo Alto, to recognize the goodwill that exists in Palo Alto. I'm trying to think of to recognize,
Can I
to
say
make change. It exists in Palo
recognize?
Alto to make change.
Mhm. Oh, to recognize the positive energy to make change, or
Thank you.
positive
Thank you.
momentum to make change without,
Yes.
because are you trying to identify the people that are currently in the community that have goodwill towards making change?
I'm sorry, ask the question again, please.
I said, are you trying to recognize the people that currently live in the community that have goodwill towards change? Is that what we're heading for?
Yes, and I want to partner with them to.
Okay. Okay. Is that motion clear to the rest of the commission? Yes, Commissioner Lee.
Can you elaborate about what the geared towards future policy recommendations? Not quite understanding.
I think as the charge from the council reads now, it is just to present a history. And I think that there are enough people are working in the community to increase their awareness of the history that exists. And I think we could add value to that by prioritizing a focal point, a reason for collecting the history, and a reason for understanding what has taken place in our community.
So are we summarizing the policy recommendations that we hear from the community during that forum, or are we, figuring out what those policy recommendations are ourselves?
I was thinking more of summarizing what we've heard. I think it's premature to say that we would be able to actually.
Okay. Would you mind modifying the motion to say to summarize the policy recommendations discussed at the community forum?
I think maybe I hear where you're going.
I mean, are we adding anything to those policy recommendations, or are we just distilling them?
So can I interject? Most people, when they're sharing their experience and history or present experience, generally aren't coming with most average person's mind doesn't come back with a policy recommendation. They probably will have some, how can I say, patterns of challenges. So maybe we can take the information given us. So the young lady, Teresa, that was there earlier, she's going to tell a story. She's talking about certain experiences she had in the city. If we hear 3 or 4 stories, then we should say the city needs to look at what policies are affecting this, or this experience is where is the policy here, instead of saying this is the policy, because I know from a lot of the people I'm currently talking to, they don't know the policy, they just know the impact. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, are we just translating the impact into the applicable policy, or are we doing any sort of filtering, or are we adding any of our own independent judgment to that translation?
I think we will. I'll be honest with you. I think let's say we hear 20 or 30 stories at this night, and we come up with something that shows a few things that show 3 or 4 times from different perspectives. I do believe there is going to be some wordsmithing and some, I won't say editing, but some translation to show the themes and the patterns, because we will have.
So we're not judging which themes or patterns are worthy of consideration. We're
just looking for the pattern.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's part of the HRC mandate, is to give the public perspective. So our job is to present the pattern, not to write our own narrative to the pattern. So I think there's a fine line there.
And who would be writing this community report?
We haven't made any assignments yet.
Okay.
I think that I will be looking for volunteers on that. So that I think is a further discussion, but I would like to take this motion now so that we can be respectful of the Parks and Rec's time and close out before 7.
Will we vote at a future meeting about who we designate to write
Yes.
the report on our, okay.
I will add it as an agenda item as we get closer to the date. Do we have a second on this motion, please?
Do I want to leave the parenthetical in?
Hmm?
There, does that, do you want to leave that in?
Yes, I do.
Could I ask if the maker and seconder would entertain a friendly motion?
There isn't a seconder yet.
I have no second.
Oh, okay. I will second it.
Thank you.
And then let me ask the maker, after the phrase include a focused history, can we say something to the effect including any inconvenient and uncomfortable truths
Oh, absolutely.
about racist policies and impacts, something like that. Inconvenient and uncomfortable. Truths.
I can.
And then are you thinking maybe comma policies and impacts?
Remember,
Like maybe historical.
I think if you put any inconvenient, uncomfortable truths and impacts, you do it because, again, people's minds don't work in policy, they just know impact.
Okay, let's do impact. I don't want this just to be a feel-good exercise. I want us to really confront.
Oh, this is not going to be a feel-good exercise.
I know, but oftentimes
no.
that's the.
Oh,
I mean, just based on my 3 years, I mean, sometimes that's the focus. So I want to make sure that it's clear that wherever this leads us, even if it's inconvenient and deeply uncomfortable, we need to confront it.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
That
Yes.
is the intent.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's accepted?
Yes.
By the maker? Okay, great.
Okay, can I do the votes now? Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Savage. You could raise your hand if it's an aye. Aye. Okay, Commissioner Slinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith, aye. Okay, I think we have covered the business of the Human Relations Commission tonight. Oh, wait, Director O'Kane, can you please, speak?
Thank you, Chair Smith. I wanted to ask some clarification on the second sentence. The commission will also partner with art and organizations to recognize the positive momentum to make change. I just am curious what that means and what that looks like.
So I know that myself and the vice chair have spoken to, example, Laura at the Palo Alto Museum, and she's helping us with the history, and there's a lot of positive momentum around her wanting to work with this, or the archive at Stanford, or so we want to acknowledge those partners that are helping push this thing forward, and at least say there is community momentum around it. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. I just want, because the word art threw me off because the Public Art Commission is also doing some work. And I wanted to make sure there was distinction.
Yes.
Not to say there couldn't be a partnership, but just wanted to be clear on that.
I was thinking of the art museum, doing some programs next year that we could partner with.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you so much.
Chair Smith?
Yes.
Were you planning on having us vote on having the public forum at this meeting, or are we going to discuss details and finalize those at a future meeting?
Public forum is our next meeting. That goes on the regular agenda planning. It's a regular agenda meeting, agendized meeting.
Okay, so we haven't officially said we're doing the public forum yet. That will be.
Oh no, which one are you talking about? The public forum? Okay, we have two public forums.
The August 13th one.
Oh yeah, that's going to be discussed a little bit more down the road. I want to deal with the expert panel and HRS and the 8 Can't Wait first. Councilmember Koo.
I wanted to ask, is your expert panel and the community meeting going to be taped?
That's a staff question. I don't know.
Minka?
I will work with the media center or another avenue to have it taped. Now, I see always the option of having it taped. Having it live on the media center is a matter of schedule. So I will say that it's 6:55. So at 7, if the meeting is not over, we'll need to take a 10-minute break. I'm not saying this to stop conversation or end the meeting, but just to give you that timing that at that point, we will need to let viewers know that if they are looking for the Parks and Rec Commission, they need to go on the Zoom call. So I just wanted to let you know, so that will be in about 5 minutes. So I think council member needs to look for that.
Council member?
I just want to say it's a great conversation, and thank you for all the work that each and every one of you are doing, and thanks for all the support from staff. And I look forward to the next meeting, but I'm going to sign off early. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that has, is that your hand, Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, I had a, is the expert panel, is that an actual special meeting of the commission?
Oh, we're using our regular meeting.
Oh, so it's a publicly noticed meeting.
Yes, everything's a public, every meeting we do will be publicly noticed. None of them, we have found out our commission cannot have any closed meetings.
Typically, aren't publicly noticed meetings broadcast on MidPen or some of those meetings not?
Not all public meetings are broadcast live on the media center. There are times where there are conflicting city meetings. So a meeting might be recorded for later view, but there is not a specific Brown Act regulation that it needs to be broadcast live. For instance, our retreats are not broadcast live.
Yeah, okay.
But we will do our best to, if that's a real of importance, then we would need to do our best with other meetings and the commission to do so, to find a time that doesn't conflict with something else.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we have covered all our bases today. Is there anything else that we need to go over? I would like to adjourn this meeting. I would like to thank each of you. As I said earlier, if you have any recommendations for people to have on the panel, we are open to as many resources and sources. So please, please, please let me know as soon as possible so we can start having the discussions to get them included. The earlier you let me know, the more likely it is to happen. All right, thank you everybody. Please have a good evening. I want to also take time to thank both council members for taking time out of their busy schedules to be with us. I also want to take time to thank staff. What people don't realize is I've legitimately spent 15 to 20 hours in discussion with staff over the past 3 weeks on a lot of various community issues, and I believe they are taking this very seriously. So I want to publicly state it. Thank you, City Manager, Director O'Kane, Director Minka, and all of the other folks that are working here. This is hard work, but we're going to get to the end of it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. We will see you next Thursday.